Tennessee with a transfer out of their program. Let's get to Freddie Dilione, if you don't mind, Caleb. How significant of a loss is that? What are your thoughts?
In this era of the transfer portal, Dave, I can't tell you how many people I thought were the future of Tennessee, and then they entered the transfer portal in basketball. So, on that regard, I would think it's significant because I feel like Freddie Dilione had rare potential for college basketball. We're talking about 6'5", 195-pound guy. I know he was only 28.6% from three this year, but he was considered a sharpshooter. I thought if he started shooting more, he would get into rhythm and become a really big threat for Tennessee. However, I think that it's just what we talked about with DJ Burns. He either has not been willing to put in the work that Rick Barnes demands, or maybe Rick Barnes, and this is the big part of the transfer portal you guys start to understand. Maybe Rick Barnes is going for a couple other guys in the transfer portal, and he needs a little more room. And so basically just said, see you, Freddie. You're not really going to play, so you may want to look elsewhere. And I think that could be possible. I think the biggest thing, though, is Tennessee. They got a lot of questions next year about their backcourt scoring. Dalton Knecht is gone. Whatever you think of Sandy Vescovi and Josiah-Jordan James, they were solid players, at least defensively. They're both gone. Jordan Gainey is the only returning rotational player from your backcourt that's not a point guard. Jordan Gainey and Zakai Ziegler is it, and that's if Zakai Ziegler doesn't go pro. So Rick Barnes has a lot of work to do to add some talent in that backcourt for next year.
You say a lot. That's an understatement. What all they have to do with that backcourt. I mean, they're lucky to have Ziegler. If Ziegler was a few inches taller, then he'd be an NBA prospect. But his height works against him in that regard and keeps him at Tennessee a little bit longer. But at what point I think Ziegler is considered a great defender, and he is, but he's got to lean on the other players that are around him too, and he's going to have a different crew. What do you make of Gainey going out there? And then I would imagine more points next year for Awaka as well.
Yeah, and Awaka's the front court. I think the front court's going to be set. The front court's going to be, Awaka, Adu again, and Estrella develop. So looking at it now, so I spoke out of turn a little bit because there's Gainey, there's Ziegler. I did forget about Jemai Mashak. I very much apologize. So Jemai Mashak, and then a couple of reserve players that I think could take a step forward: Cameron Carr and DJ Jefferson. We saw some potential from both of them. They were both freshmen this year. They might see a lot. It's possible all those guys are part of the rotation again this year, but I don't think Barnes can afford to not take a transfer portal guy. So if no changes were made to this team, your starting lineup next year would probably be Zakai Ziegler, Jordan Gainey, Jemai Mashak, Jonas Adu, and I don't know if he'd play small again or if he would have Toby Awaka and Jonas Adu in there at the same time, which that's for Barnes reverting to old school Barnes, playing bigger again. So, and then scoring off the bench, you would have Cameron Carr and DJ Jefferson, and then your post player off the bench would be JP Estrella. If those guys develop the way Rick Barnes players typically develop, that's not a bad situation. But they don't have the depth they need to in the backcourt to be able to play small again like they had this year, which was a huge advantage for them down the stretch.
I'm going to give you 3 different kinds of players from 3 different eras, but I think you'll follow along. One is a spot-up jump shooter. He is not going to miss. The other is a swing man that you've just watched play that can get to the rims and score on 3 levels. And the other you've just seen play. He's a big man who will frustrate the heck out of you because it seems like he never gets a foul called, nor does he get called for 3 seconds. And Tennessee fans hate him, and I understand why. So regardless of how good they are, you're just fitting a character, so to speak. You've got like a JJ Redick, a spot-up shooter who's not going to miss, especially in the clutch. You've got a Zach Edey. He's that post player type guy. Or you've got a Dalton Knecht that's positionless basketball. He can come off the wing. He can score in a lot of different ways. I'm not saying one's better than the other, and I'm not comparing the individual players. But when it comes to that one kind of player you think Tennessee should most go after in the transfer portal, who would it be, Caleb?
Oh, Dalton Knecht again. Go for another Dalton Knecht. And I think you can get more. I don't think me and you are going to break on this, and I could be so wrong. And I will, by the way, I've been right a lot the last month, but I'm going to say that Dave was right on this. Dave said about maybe 2 weeks into the basketball season, this Dalton Knecht makes Tennessee different from any team Rick Barnes has ever coached. You did say that very early on when you watched them play. I think it was when you saw them play Kansas. And
I just
was one
thought
of those.
I thought it looked like Jason Tatum had snuck down and got some sort of videographic face and another jersey. And I mean, it looked like, because I watch the Celtics all the time, I was like, this is the same dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think another one of those is what's important. I think that, so here's going to be my hot take, where I could be wrong, but here's going to be my hot take. I don't think Dalton Knecht is as a rare find in the transfer portal nowadays as you, Dave. I think Dalton Knecht, there are so many elite scorers of that caliber at the lower levels of college basketball that are just a little bit of Rick Barnes developing away from being All-Americans. And I think that Rick Barnes should find one of those every year. It used to be you find the one and done guy. Rick Barnes' philosophy at Texas was build a team with experience, then go pick a one and done out of, top 5 recruit, plug him in, and win that way. That never actually worked because for some reason, one and done lottery picks never mesh well in Rick Barnes' system. Like, they never accept their roles in Rick Barnes' system. So don't go for that at the recruiting level. Go for the transfer portal guy that has been in the league has been in the game for 3-4 years and just needs to develop one aspect of his game to be an NBA draft pick. That's what Dalton Knecht was. I think there's a lot of those players that you can find in the transfer portal.
A lot of players. I mean, if you look at Dalton Knecht, I believe was 13th best in the transfer portal. He turned out to be, I think we would all argue, the best. I mean, they had Hunter Dickinson, the center who went to Kansas, from Michigan. You had Khalil Ware from Oregon to Indiana. Grant Nelson goes to Alabama. Jesse Edwards goes to West Virginia. J.J. Starling goes to Stanford. L.J. Cryer goes to Houston. Jameer Nelson Jr. goes to TCU. Max Abrams goes to Texas. Ryan Nimberhard goes to Gonzaga. And Tyler Burton goes to Nova. J.V. McCollum goes to Ohio. And then Brandon Murray goes to Ole Miss just before Knecht. None of those guys turned out to be superstars. They were higher rated than Dalton Knecht, but they weren't superstars. So I think you're being a little bit, Caleb, optimistic that Tennessee can just go pick up a Knecht each and every year.
Which one of them went to play for Rick Barnes?
Ooh, the Dalton Knecht guy did.
I think a huge part of this was Rick Barnes and his coaching, and Dalton Knecht bought in very fast to what he was doing. And I think,
well, and he supposedly asked for it too. And a lot of those TV stories, they'll talk about, Dalton Knecht, he walked uphill both ways in the snow with no shoes and to get to school. A lot of those stories are embellished, but the part where he's really wants to be coached and he didn't care about NIL money, that is true. A lot of that is true. So he turns down money to do autographs all the time. He is not a guy who's thinking about money. So there's
let's see. He may be thinking about money, but he's not short-sighted. He's thinking about the NBA draft money, not the college NIL money, because he knows that's where the wealth is, quite honestly. And so you say it all the time. You use the Calipari quote, tripping over nickels in search of millions. I mean, Dalton Knecht is a veteran, experienced player who's had some years on him now, is mature, and probably thought, why waste a year on NIL money when I could spend it to really build my NBA draft profile? And the NBA draft is not like the NFL draft, guys. You get NBA money, you are doing really, really well.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, so the top-rated guys that aren't committed to a school yet, John L. Davis out of Florida Atlantic, and he is a shooting guard. And then you have Maxime Renard, who is a big dude, big center. I'm telling you, people are going to love this guy. 7 foot, 200 pounds. He is out of Stanford, and he's going somewhere. I'll take Renard over the shooting guard. Sorry, I think there's room for that in college basketball. I think you're seeing the big man renaissance. I'm going to be on the front end of it. I'm sorry, Caleb, that you're not a part of it with me, because I'm big man renaissance in this thing, and it's brought to you by Quality Tire Pro. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered. Just stop by there and say Off the Hook Sports says, hey, Bo. You'd appreciate that on Cherokee Boulevard. Caleb, it's a big man renaissance extravaganza. Give me some Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Give me some Moses Malone. Give me the Chief, Robert Parrish. That's what the college basketball game is going to be within 2 or 3 years.
Dave, you're missing a huge aspect of this, though,
What
with
is
the
that?
big men. Everybody you just named came up in an era where there were coaches that actually coached you on footwork and how to develop and play like a big man. Nobody's coached on that anymore. They're all coached on how to stretch the floor on the perimeter.
Somebody coached the Edie kid. Somebody coached the Edie kid. He's got crazy good footwork.
Yeah, someone did coach the Edie kid. Maybe he just played soccer. Okay, that's probably
actually when football players tell me that, I'm usually like, okay, he's a little bit better. It's like when a center tells you he was a wrestler, I'm like, oh, he understands leverage. But anyway,
yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's why Hakeem Olajuwon was so good. He played soccer. I mean,
crazy feet.
Yeah, soccer was his first sport. Rex Ryan will probably love his feet, but sorry. Guys, we had an off-color joke about this before the show today, so I just wanted,
Yes.
with Rex Ryan and his
feet.
Yes. So I'm sorry, it's John L. Davis, and John L. Davis is a perfect type of guy for Rick Barnes. He's the guy I love. John L. Davis went from averaging 3 points a game as a freshman to averaging 18 points a game as a senior. He got Florida Atlantic to the Final Four. He went from shooting 23% from three to 41% from three, from 76% from the foul line to 86% from the foul line, averaging over 6 rebounds, averaging 3 assists, averaging 1.5 steals. This is the type of player you love. He's a development player. He just is missing maybe one aspect of his game to become an NBA superstar. And that's where Rick Barnes can come in. This is the type of guy. And by the way, from Gary, Indiana, I'll say this, Dave, you know this. Indiana high school basketball, that's some tough basketball. Like, you develop tough mentally when you play in Indiana at the high school level. Probably more than any other state in the country. Honestly, I would say Indiana high school basketball is a tougher brand than North Carolina high school basketball. Is that fair to say?
I mean, to me, they're not even the toughest. I would take, like you mentioned, Rucker Park.
Well, New York kids are by far the toughest. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that Big East style.
Yeah. But I think that's what I love about Ziegler is he's got some of that. Can he transfer that to other players? We'll see.